Cups up. Toast to you and the Morning Word crowd. God bless you and God bless America. Okay, 1 Samuel chapter 15. Let's just read a few verses. Hey, Steve Jones. Verse 1, chapter 15. Samuel also said to Saul, "The Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore heed the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel, how he ambushed him on the way when he came up from Egypt. Now go and attack Amalek and utterly destroy all they have, and do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, infant and nursing child, ox and sheep, camel and donkey." Now tomorrow we're going to read on down and cover his lack of obedience in doing that, but I wanted to pause right there this morning. And I've seen and heard over the years people on TV and radio interviews and so forth, and they always, when they're being confronted with the gospel and with the Bible and with God, they always say, I don't want to have anything to do with a God who is like that, who orders the death of men and women and children and even the animals. What kind of God is that? I don't want to serve that kind of God. Yada yada yada. Well, let's just get a couple of things out there, okay? First of all, man is the one who brought sin into the world. Bible's very plain about that. For all the wickedness and evil in the world, that lies on us. That does not lie on God. Matter of fact, the better question would be is, why doesn't God kill everybody on the planet? Because he could, and he had a good reason to. As a matter of fact, I heard a guy say one time, if God eliminated all of the evil on this planet at midnight tonight, at 12:01, would you still be alive? So there's room for improvement in everybody's life, right? We all have sinful shortfalls. So again, going back to the topic, why would God do this? Well, let's do a couple of things. Today's morning word is war. What is it good for? And I got that from the lyrics from the song that was released in 1970, War. And here's what it says, war. Yeah, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Y'all know it. Say it with me. Say it again. War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. First line. Ooh, war I despise, because it means destruction of innocent lives. War means tears to thousands of mothers' eyes when their sons go off to fight and lose their lives. I said, war, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Well, I have never had a personal family member or personal close friend give their life in war. When I was in the military, when I served my time, we were not at war. We were in a peacetime, and I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very grateful for all of the people. We just passed Memorial Day. I'm grateful for all the men who gave their lives, made great and huge, tremendous sacrifices for this country, and all the men who serve. I am very proud to be an American. I'm proud to be a veteran. And I'm certainly proud and grateful and thankful for all the people that have sacrificed so much for this country. And in talking about this topic, war, what is it good for? We have to think about what God is doing right here. He tells Saul, okay, where is Israel? Where have they come from? Out of Egypt. Where has he brought them to? Into the promised land. And they've been there now for a hot minute. And now God is going to turn around and do some housekeeping. And he's going to, the first people outside of the Philistines that they've had this ongoing conflict with, God now turns back and he says, I got to deal with something that I passed over. And that is Amalek. Now, who is Amalek? Well, first of all, Amalek himself is the grandson of Esau, a warring people, right? When you say Esau, you just got to know you got trouble, all right? And so Amalek is a grandson of Esau. And when the children of Israel came out of Egypt and into the promised land, the Amalekites, the people that follow Amalek, the Amalekites, his people, fell in behind them and began to pick them off from behind. They were what we would consider today modern day terrorists. They did not fight as a warring, uniformed army kind of deal in mass. They conducted warring raids with pockets of people that would come down on unsuspecting people, hit them, kill them, take their stuff off. As a matter of fact, there's not much of a record, if a record at all, with regards to the Amalekites being any kind of productive, herding, agricultural people. They didn't work. They made their living off marauding and raiding people and taking away their goods, killing them, and then they would just hit, devastate, steal, and be gone. So they did that as Israel was coming into, the Hebrews, as they were coming into the promised land, and God didn't deal with it then. And there's a whole story here. Just because God doesn't deal with it right now doesn't mean he ain't going to deal with it eventually, all right? So he passed over it, but now he's going to circle back with Saul, and he said, we're going to kill the Amalekites. Now, this is very important because this is in fulfillment of a prophecy. If you go back to Numbers, God had Balaam prophesy, and he prophesied that Israel would destroy Amalek and their memory from under the sun. All right. So that's what's getting ready to happen here. So God tells Saul, we just read it. He said, we're going to circle back. And he said, I'm going to punish Amalek for what he did to Israel. I want you to hear those words. I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel. I will punish Amalek for what he did to Israel. Friends, listen to me. We talked about it. We preached about it yesterday. The immutability of God. He does not change. And once he's said something that he's going to do, you're exactly right. And he had already prophesied through Balaam he was going to destroy Amalek. Well, guess what? He's getting ready to do that. Why? Because of how they treated his people Israel. That is full circle today. We're going somewhere. Nations that punish, that mistreat, that abandon, that backstab, that malign and hate and persecute the nation of Israel. Just because God hadn't dealt with it yet doesn't mean that God's not going to deal with it eventually. How they treat his people. So he says, now go and attack Amalek and destroy them and spare nothing. Kill everything. Part of the question, as we mentioned a while ago, why do people question why God did this? Well, he's establishing a nation inside a border. Number one, he's establishing a nation inside borders. And to do that, he's displacing and removing other nations from the land that God takes ownership of and is giving to Israel. So he's establishing a nation. He's driving all of these people out. Why? Because God knows that these people and Israel cannot cohabitate. Why? Because they are pagan, ungodly, idol-worshiping, warring, terroristic nations. And he is making a nation out of Israel that is a peculiar people that love the Lord, that follow him, that trust him for his protection, his provision, and their preservation. And so there's automatically a clash here. We would do well to understand that you cannot allow within your borders people who do not assimilate with you. If they're here and they've demonstrated an unwillingness to assimilate, to abide by the laws, speak the language, so forth and so on. You can't stay. You got to go. And we would do well to learn that lesson. And God knew that if he left them there, it would be like a seed that eventually comes back up. It's like kudzu. These people are like kudzu. All right, you can cut it down and you can't see anything. Over time, it's coming up, and if you don't deal with it quick, soon, and efficiently, it will take over everything. God knows that. So he says, go kill everything. War, what is it good for? Well, it's good for accomplishing God's purposes in the earth. War has been here since the beginning of time, and God uses it. God sent the Assyrians upon Israel to punish them for their mixing and mingling eventually with the people that they didn't drive out of the promised land. Then he sent Babylon to overcome Assyria and to take Israel captive. Then he sent Greece to take care of Babylon. Then he sent Rome to take care of Greece. And here, war, what's it good for? Well, God allows evil because he can redeem it, meaning that he can make a useful purpose of it in his overall plan. God did not cause wars, but God redeemed them to accomplish his purposes. And likewise, he's going to use them to drive these people out because they were terrorists. They didn't even, like I said, they didn't have jobs. They didn't produce anything. Their livelihood was based on what they took and pillaged from other nations. So God said, okay, here's what we're going to do right now. We're going to circle back. And he said, we're going to kill all the Amalekites. All of them. Women and children, animals. You go, that's hard. Yeah, war's hell. War's hell. Okay. And the last person that you want to go to war with, or should I say war against, is God. That's number one. You don't want to fight against God. And number two, you don't want to fight against the Jews because God is going to be with them. God has even orchestrated their own punishment, but redeemed it and for his own good, and then turned around and punished the nations that did it. Okay. So God knows what he's doing here. He's not shooting from the hip. He's not flock shooting them. And he said he had already made a prophecy. I'm going to destroy Amalek, and eventually down here, Amalek himself left no remnant, nothing. He absolutely obliterated it. So what's war good for? It's not good in the sense that it causes death and destruction. It's absolutely good for fulfilling the plan and the purposes of God to bring about his redemption and eventually his renewal of the heavens and the earth. God didn't bring war into the story, but we did. But once we brought it into the story, he knows how to work it. All right. And so when it's time to fight, and can be on a personal level, this can be on a military level with nations, and it can even be in a spiritual level. Okay. When it's time to fight, if it's bad enough you have to fight, you fight to win decisively, to remove all doubt. As we called it back in the day, a country boy, whipping. And that is when the fight was over, whoever lost had absolutely no qualms and no intentions of ever fighting that again. We've kind of lost that. The last time we fought like that was in World War II. We haven't won since. And nations now are more concerned with what it looks like on the front page of the newspaper. But if you're going to go to war, you go to war to win, whether it be out in the backyard, in the parking lot of Walmart, or over some border or something in some other country. And spiritually, when it comes time to dealing with sin, you don't just lop the top off. You get the root out. You got to dig the root out. You got to go to the cause. You got to go to the cause, and you got to get rid of the cause. Not just the crop, the cause. You got to go to the root. You got to deal with it. And it's hard, and it's harsh, and it causes pain at every level. Spiritually, physically, emotionally, nationally, economically. War causes pain, but it accomplishes God's purpose. Now, we're not to be a warring people outside of fighting spiritual warfare, but when it's time, it's time. And you got to make up your mind, is this worth it? And if you say, yeah, it's worth it, then you get after it. That's what God told them. War, God didn't bring it into the world, but God absolutely uses it, and he redeems it for his sovereign purposes. And we need to be mindful of that. You can't fight a clean war. You can't fight a politically correct war. And I'll give you an example in the spirit real quickly. My father was an alcoholic, and he got in some trouble, and so he had to self-admit himself into a 30-day rehab program. And when he came out, the news was interviewing him, because at the time he was the police chief of Tuscaloosa. And they were interviewing him. Here's what he said. I was watching it on the news live. They interviewed him, Mr. Chief Fuller, and he says, here's what he said. I had a little problem with beer, and we had to get it fixed, and we got it fixed. And immediately in my mind, and I wasn't even living for the Lord, but immediately in my mind, when he said I had a little problem with beer and I had to get it fixed, and we fixed it, I said, he ain't got it. First of all, he had minimized the problem, okay? And he tried to downplay it and said, and then he localized it, meaning that it's not alcohol in general, it's just beer, right? And then he said, we got it. I go, okay, this ain't gonna last till the water gets hot. And he didn't. Why? Because all he did was lop off the top. He didn't deal with the root. I knew that immediately. And God says, here's what we're going to do, boys. When we get finished with war, when we get finished with Amalek, there will not be any sign whatsoever that he ever existed. Now, that is how you deal with it. War, what's it good for? It's good for accomplishing God's purposes. And when it's time to deal with it, you deal with it to the root. We love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Good Lord willing, and the saints don't rise. Peace out, roll tide, and even so, come, Lord Jesus. See you later.